Hi, everyone, and welcome to Jehoavah Boy. I'm your host, Doug Smith. Welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Glad to have you aboard. Today, we have a very special episode. I am doing an AMA for you guys. I asked you to send in your questions, and you did not disappoint. I collected a whole slew of questions about J-Dub, some of them ridiculous, some of them hilarious, some of them quite thought-provoking, and I'm going to answer them for you on the pod today with help from none other than my dear friend. He's more than a friend. He's a brother in more than one way. Brother from another mother, brother from the Christian faith, fellow ex-J-Dub like myself, my boy, the one and only Mark Buzzee, paid me a visit all the way from North Carolina. This is his first podcast that he's ever done. He's not a comedian. He's not an entertainer. He steers clear of the world of showbiz, which means he's much more sane than any guest I've ever had on this pod. And he's a teacher. He truly does the Lord's work. This was his first podcast appearance ever, and he fucking nailed it. This was a blast to do this AMA with him. Really sent us back to reflect on things that we have tried very hard to run away from. But he nailed it. He nailed it, and we had a great time together. This was an absolute blast to record with him. This was our first in-studio interview as well. So the audio quality, I've been told it still sounds good, but it may sound slightly different from previous episodes because we used wireless lavalier mics. We still held them by hand. I don't know why we did that. Probably because I didn't trust the quality. But yes, this was our first in-studio interview, and I hope to do many more. And I hope to have Mark back as a guest. In fact, he has already agreed to come back as a guest. I mean, he was a guest on this, but I mean like an interview, like an actual interview. Go down a dark road into his checkered past, really dig up some dirt, dig up some trauma. We know that's what this is all about, but I figured I'd ease him in with a little AMA episode. So without further ado, we will get to your questions now. Thank you so much for sending them in. Please keep them coming. JehoavahBoyPodcast@gmail.com. Send in your questions and your stories or whatever you want to send in. If it makes the cut, you can be a part of this show. Thank you for the support. Without further ado, AMA with Mark Buzzee.
This is Jehovah's name.
Like, I was thinking about it this morning in terms of when I met you. I'd say probably grandparents, aunts and uncles first, maybe. I was probably like 8th person, maybe.
That I met?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. You cut the cord, I think.
2 years apart.
You're like,
I may have even...
Larry, let me get this. Your hands are shaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it had, a very small circle, for sure.
Right? Yeah. So we go way back, fellow defector, fellow apostate.
Correct.
Armageddon strikes now. We are
I'm on the wrong side of the
We're
wood.
not going to make the cut. Yeah. Hey, we'll go down together, man. I'm very excited to have Mark here because I am going to have him as a official guest interview on the pod very soon. But I wanted to ease him in slowly but surely because, like we said, never done a podcast. So far you're nailing it.
Thank you.
But I will have him on as an official guest, get a little bit of his origin story and all the shit that he went through in his quest to leave America's favorite doomsday cult. Today, we have a special AMA episode. I've never done an AMA episode. I was telling my listeners in the promo for this episode that I have you known what AMA is for a long time? I had been confusing...
No, I had to Google it when you said it to me.
Okay, I had been confusing AMA with MMA this whole time. So every time I saw somebody posting about an AMA, I was like, Jesus, I didn't know all these people were into fucking bare-knuckle boxing. I thought everybody was just getting their ass kicked on Instagram Live. So now that I know what it is, seems much more feasible. So that is what this episode is, everybody. This is an AMA. I've been gathering up your questions, listener questions, because, Jehovah's Witnesses are... even though they're 8 million strong, they're kind of a mysterious bunch. A lot of people have preconceived notions about them and don't really know much beyond the fact that they go door to door and don't celebrate holidays. So we're going to debunk some myths, get to the bottom of some shit. The most often asked question I get when I tell people I was a Jehovah's Witness is definitely, why aren't you black? Have you heard this before as well?
Not in that phrasing, but
No?
yeah, no. I a lot of people say, yeah, I thought that was a black religion.
Yeah. That's a much more tactful way of putting it. All right, so let's get into our first question. This was a good one. This left me scratching my head. Our first question is from Sarah H. The question is, why don't Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Halls have windows? You ever thought about that?
I haven't, because
First of all, have you noticed this? Do Jehovah's Witnesses Kingdom Halls have windows?
Yes, they do. I think so.
There are some windows. There are windows, but not a lot of windows. It's not like it's not like if you went there. It's not like if you're doing a house tour and you went into a Kingdom Hall, you'd be like, yeah, this place is flooded with sunlight. Although I don't know if most religious places have a lot of windows.
Well, there's no like stained glass. There's no like gaudy, colorful,
Right.
giant windows at the front or the back. I don't know. I feel like they're built to code. Like there's one window everywhere there needs to be one.
Yeah.
Not too many more than that.
Yeah. If you need to flee, you can throw a chair through a set number of windows and make your escape. But yeah, there is no... See, that's the thing about a Catholic church, though. You're calling it gaudy. I think it's beautiful. I've been to a couple of Catholic masses, and it's just a feast for the senses. They got candles and incense burning, and these stained glass shit, and these sculptures, and these beautiful tapestries, and it's just like, which I think is maybe a bad thing because it's very distracting. I can't remember anything I've ever heard a priest say at a Catholic mass, because I was just...
It's something, you got something to do while you're being bored to death.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was because people were illiterate. No, really, like in the Middle Ages, and they couldn't follow along, so they had to, like a picture book.
Makes sense.
Not verified, also.
I think so. Put it on Wikipedia. Count it. Well, that's funny that you say that, though, because Kingdom Halls, I will say this, like, the Kingdom Hall, so we were in the same congregation. We were in the same congregation for the first, 13 years of your life till you moved to North Carolina?
Yeah, 11, 12, something like that.
So our home base, our original congregation, the Lewisboro, New York congregation, I remember there being in the actual assembly area where the sermons are being given, where the congregation, sits to, partake of the services. I remember there being maybe 3 windows on one wall with not much of a view of anything. And I have to imagine the limited number of windows is to not cause too much distraction. You got fucking palm trees and hummingbird feeders outside the windows. It's, people aren't going to be focusing on what they need to, right?
I think the question is there an all glass Kingdom Hall out there? We need to know.
No, because we would be throwing bricks through it on day one. But no, there is nothing remotely beautiful to distract you at a Jehovah's Witness meeting, right? It's all just like, everything is very kind of like earth tones, a lot of beiges and mauves, right? There's nothing really ornate to look at. There's no stained glass. There's no statues.
Low stage.
No, well, because there's no idolatry. So
right.
There's not even any statues of Christ on the cross. Low stage.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a verse. There's a verse up on the stage, I think.
Yes.
One a year.
There's a Bible verse on the stage. Yep. Yeah. And it's just that, and then just some dude in a shitty threadbare Men's Warehouse suit. Right? That's it.
Yeah.
So not much to look at. And I get it. They want you to stay there. It's like a casino. Casinos don't have windows either. They want you to stay there. There's no clocks in a Kingdom Hall either. Right? If there is, it's behind you. It's behind you. You can't, it's not over the speaker. That would be disastrous.
Yeah.
That would make it harder, I think. I think that would make the meetings go by even slower if there was a clock. But yeah, it's like a casino. Although I think it would help if they were giving out free drinks. They should really lean into the casino.
That's once a year on Memorial. Yeah, if you dare.
Yeah, if you dare. If you dare imbibe the blood of Christ. And also, like, conventions, definitely no windows at a convention hall. Let's break down, for those of our listeners who don't know what a convention is? How would you explain that?
It's a good question. Well, there are two levels. So there's the congregation, and then there was like an assembly where maybe, I don't know, 10 congregations get together, and that would be once or twice a year. And then the big daddy is your district convention, and that's, if there are 10 at the assembly, how are there 30?
I'd say so. I'm throwing out a ballpark number, but I'd say there was probably, the district conventions that we went to, I'd say that was at New Haven Coliseum, which has now been since leveled, I think 20 years ago. What a abysmal hellhole that place was. They used to host, what was it? Minor league hockey games there.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
I know Van Halen played there on their OU812 tour.
What a fact.
I think they had some like not WrestleManias, but like some smaller scale.
Like monster truck rally.
Yeah,
not in New Haven, Connecticut, but
right.
Yeah, down by us.
I think it held around like 5,000. Does that sound about right? And I wouldn't say they filled it to max capacity, but there was.
Yeah, I would say at least 5,000.
There was a lot.
It's like a small version of like an arena, like hockey, basketball. So yeah, I would say probably maybe even 10.
Right. Yeah, you might be right.
But you're right. It's probably whatever the region would be the arena that was one step away from being bulldozed, because I imagine it was like
cheapest to rent.
The cheapest to rent. And I'm sure they like loved having Jehovah's Witnesses in because we like cleaned it.
Oh, yeah.
That was
about leaving a place better than you found it.
I mean, they're just like, like a horde of locusts going in and, picking it clean and just left it immaculate.
You could do the white glove test on a arena urinal and be like, wow, no one's ever pissed in this thing. Yeah. I remember cleaning up after the sweeping and, on my hands and knees, picking gum off the bottom of the seats that had been there for 30 years. Like, you can't leave this place looking aces. Bottom line, all these places are not a feast for the eyes. They're very depressing, generally boring places to be, on top of what's already being fed to you and indoctrinated. One thing I used to do to pass the time at the conventions was we used to call it whale watching. Do you remember that?
No.
Remember whale watching?
No.
Maybe that was a term me and Matt Risnick came up with. Do you remember at the conventions though? So like we would be sitting up in the cheap seats and we'd have like binoculars, right? You remember bringing binoculars so you could see the speaker more clearly?
Yeah,
way up there. So down on the floor level, the VIP section, there were, the handicaps. There's a lot of wheelchairs, a lot of elderly, and people that were too morbidly obese to make their way up the stairs of this stadium seating. So I remember the most entertaining thing for me was to watch a 400-pound woman get out of her seat in front of 10,000 people and shuffle her way along the floor on her way to the bathroom. And like 10 paces in, have to lean over on a railing and catch her breath so she didn't stroke out in front of everybody. And then 10 more paces. And we would always see, every year we would try to see if we could spot, the largest person.
Right. And that's why your destruction at Armageddon was assured decades before you decided to leave.
Oh, yeah. I cemented my place in hell long ago. But do you remember doing that?
I think my parents, like most of the parents, were a little bit empathetic to the fact that like a 5-year-old sitting for, 8 hours, with only a short lunch break was a bit of an ask. So what I was allowed to do was like draw scenes from what was going on in the Bible. And you've read part of it. It's a pretty violent book. There's a lot of action early on, a lot of Hittites and other Philistines just getting their just due. So yeah, I basically draw, poorly drawn. You were the artist, but I draw just these violent 3,000-year-old battle scenes of people taking spears and ram's horns and just chaos. And then I would show my mom, and she'd be like, all right, well, you need to find a Bible verse that you're depicting. You can't just draw this barbarism. And so then I'd be like, all right, I'd find something from, 1 Samuel 3:12, and,
right.
And the Hittites, were laid to waste because they failed to recognize the one true God, sort of thing. So that was I
remember that. That was
a go-to.
You had to find a compelling Bible verse, half the Bible. You can't just draw a fucking still life of frankincense and myrrh,
It's true.
My go-to were Bible depictions was David and Goliath.
Classic.
Watch a little dude fling a rock and take down a giant. The sling, what would he use? A slingshot? Some sort of...
I think a sling.
Sling, yeah. Which probably takes even more...
Just a rock and a piece of rope. Just leather.
It's almost like an early version of highlight, right?
Yes.
Sling?
I think it was like a piece of leather, right?
Yeah.
It seems like the kind of weapon that like no one could ever, like how could you possibly ever get good?
Like
taking a t-shirt and a tennis ball and then like getting good at
North Carolina. Yeah, and he whipped this rock at Goliath and hit him right between
the eyes.
So
felled him.
Yeah, I used to draw that rock just really wedged in there with like a split going up the skull and blood trickling down the nose. Yeah, gory shit, which we were able to get away with as long as it was actually biblical, as long as it was from an actual account. Yeah. Let's move on to our next question. This one comes from Amber K, who asks, can Jehovah's Witnesses celebrate Mother's Day or Father's Day?
That's a good one. I think no would probably be
I never did.
The official answer. We used to, so when I was growing up, my dad did not become official or like get baptized till I was probably 12 or 13. And so we would celebrate some of like, I guess the soft holidays. Like we would always go in and visit my grandfather here in Brooklyn on Father's Day. We celebrated Thanksgiving for a while. So I think so he was out and my mom was in. And so I think there was a little wiggle room there, but like Thanksgiving, you're just like eating essentially. Father's Day. There's no hardcore.
They like to say that all holidays are frowned upon because they have pagan origins, but I don't know how they can pin that on Mother's Day and Father's Day.
Yeah, I think that's more of a like, you need to be separate from the world. So anything that anyone is doing in mass is.
And I remember asking about it and having because I think I remember specifically asking my mom, like, why would you not want Mother's Day? And she was like, am I only special on Mother's Day? Why can't I be celebrated every day of the year? Just the ultimate manipulator. And then if your mom dies, you don't have to worry about Mother's Day at all. My dad's still around. Now I celebrate Father's Day. I give him a call. I wouldn't say I celebrate. It's easy to make a phone call one day a year.
I'm back on Father's Day now. It's the first year we went fishing.
Yeah.
Didn't catch anything though.
Yep. Hey, that's the ultimate fishing trip. I remember when we'll get into another question we're going to get into in a bit here. I remember when Notorious B.I.G.'s mother was on Total Request Live in like 2002. I think it was like the anniversary of his death. Jehovah's Witnesses are only allowed to celebrate one holiday, and that is the memorial of Notorious B.I.G.'s death. I think it was the anniversary of his death, and I think it was around Mother's Day. I think Carson Daly wished her a happy Mother's Day, and she made a point of being like, oh, actually, I don't celebrate Mother's Day. And I was like, holy shit, does that mean Biggie was a Jehovah's Witness, or just his mom was? But even like, yeah, they like any holiday that you're wished a happy one as a Jehovah's Witness, it just leads to such awkward social exchanges, right?
Oh,
somebody says Merry Christmas to you, you can't even say thank you. You can't say Merry Christmas back.
No, definitely
you can't
not.
even say, I don't even think, I was told to not even say thank you. You're basically told to ignore it.
Just walk away.
Yeah, that'd be a fun game, right? Jehovah's Witness or autistic.
Or both.
Yeah. Yeah. So like,
it's an odd one to take a stand on national television though.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly.
Mother's Day.
Yeah, she really just outed
Just be
herself as a
courteous.
weirdo.
Be courteous.
Yeah,
Say thank you, Carson.
Thanks, Carson.
You're great.
Man.
I enjoy tuning in every afternoon.
Yeah.
We'll see you later.
Now back to In Sync. Bye, bye, bye for the 60th day in a row. Remember when they used to have to retire videos? When boy bands just...
I didn't know they had to retire them. They just had such a stranglehold.
They had such a reign of
terror.
One spot. Terror, yeah. But they were like, all right, you screaming tweens, we got to take this one out. We got to take this one down for a little bit. I think you hit the nail on the head. Is just further illustrates the need to separate themselves from the rest of the world. You know, it's just they extract no joy in life. The word celebrate is not a word. It's not part of the Jehovah's Witness vocabulary. I think the word celebrate is frowned upon.
Not a lot of, not a group of cool in the gang.
The only celebration is high school graduation.
Graduation, anniversaries, your parents' anniversaries. A lot will go into that. It's a wild night.
Yeah, that's it though, man. It's pretty dismal. All right, this is a good one. This is one that I've wondered myself. Don F asks, how do Jehovah's Witnesses make money? My answer is they don't. But I think we should tackle this from two angles. First, how do individual Jehovah's Witnesses make money? Let's tackle that first, and then let's get into how does the organization...
how do the Jehovah's Witnesses make money? Yeah.
So individual Jehovah's Witnesses, I think largely Jehovah's Witnesses I think of as a fairly impoverished population because secular education is not a priority. Higher education is frowned upon, right? Mm-hmm. You're discouraged from going to college because God forbid you actually, get some sort of outside influence or actual knowledge and learn some life skills, because if you do, then you're not dependent on the organization anymore and you can separate yourself more easily, right?
Sure.
So as far as I'm concerned, I mostly saw Jehovah's Witnesses that had, fairly blue-collar manual labor jobs. There's a lot of roofers, contractors, construction. A lot of like smart people doing. Yes.
People who maybe would have gone to college or been really financially successful doing stuff like that.
I mean, there was exceptions. I mean, your dad made a good living for himself.
Yeah, for sure. But he came in late.
Right.
He was in his 40s.
People that are born into it,
there's a distinction.
Very much. Yes. People that come in later that have a foothold in the real world before they throw their life away.
It's tough. Yeah, I think a lot about. The comparison's pretty natural, but like Mormons, they're doing it right. If you're going to be in one of these things, they've got the state of Utah, locked down politically, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Universities, like you can go to a university and, associate with other Mormons, get an education, big families, you make money.
Yeah.
Very successful. Jehovah's Witnesses were sort of like the flip side of that. No.
It's true. Somebody asked me the other day, because I was telling them that a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses are homeschooled. Somebody was asking me, and I was saying, well, yeah, I would think if they wanted to keep Jehovah's Witness youth really devoted to the organization, you would homeschool them, because school is your portal to the outside world. That's when you really get a taste of, all these kids are living very different lives than I am. They're not spending their weekends going door to door. They're not spending their Tuesday and Thursday nights at a church service. They're allowed to engage in extracurricular activities, go to school dances, and you're like, oh, okay, this is what a full and enriching life looks like. So I think if they really wanted to keep you in this bubble, why don't they have Jehovah's Witness schools? Right?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Those are cheap motherfuckers. They want to build new kingdom hall. They want to funnel it up the ladder, which honestly, that will lead into, here's the second part of this question. How do Jehovah's Witnesses make money? Jehovah's Witnesses had a world headquarters in Brooklyn up until, I want to say, 10 years ago, right in Dumbo.
Before Williamsburg even got cool. They were the original.
Yep. This was they bought it up back in, I think, the early 80s when it was still just kind of like a wasteland, kind of a barren wasteland. They bought up multiple city blocks, turned them all into, so Jehovah's Witnesses have, I did a recon mission and I gathered up some publications a couple months ago. I went to a Kingdom Hall. They got these beautiful leather-bound Bibles here, which I've talked about this in the past on the pod. One of the things I used to do to pass the time at the meetings was slurp this bookmark like a strand of spaghetti and just go fucking balls deep and then just slowly pull it out again and then slurp it back down and pull it back out again. Just slobbering up my bookmark. God's holy word, just defiling the pages of this thing. They have publications printed in like 700 different languages. So they have like a fully functional, like a well-oiled machine. And so they bought up all these buildings, or it's basically like a commune, would you say?
Yeah, I think, it's sort of celebrated. I guess there's another thing to celebrate. Celebrated if you at, 18 or 19 or 20, when you would maybe go off to college, you would come up to Brooklyn, and work as a volunteer on site and help like print all the literature. Yeah, that was like going to an Ivy League school.
Yep, in exchange for room and board
and your labor.
Yeah. You work your ass off. You live in a jail cell. You get 3 meals a day. You get jacked in the yard, join the Aryan race, and
then you come back with without any skills or resume.
Yeah, that was my mom's dream for me, was to go to, they call it Bethels. They have several different branches too. Bethel has a biblical connotation, which I guess means like a place of, place of worship or
refuge or
something. Yeah. Something like that. But they bought up these city blocks. They converted them into these printing presses and
state of the art though. Like
dormitories, I guess you would call them, and food mess halls or whatever you want to call those, cafeterias. They had a fully functioning society basically in this area of Dumbo, and then they sold it. So they bought it up in the early 80s when it was nothing, wasn't worth anything, and then that whole area around there slowly got built up, very trendy, and then they sold it about 10, 12 years ago for $1 billion.
At least.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I think they moved the operation to somewhere upstate. Either they had property up there and they expanded, or there's like a new headquarters now.
Yes. Now they have, I think they relocated to Warwick, New York, and they have a massive compound in a more rural setting. They have like, it's an estate. They have probably a couple 100 acres there. It's amazing. I came to learn, I was not aware as a kid, I knew it was the Jehovah's Witness organization was supported by contributions. So we were encouraged every meeting to donate to the organization, make a contribution. There were little, they didn't pass around
no collection plate.
No collection plate. It was much more discreet.
It was a box. They were little boxes in the wall. And just with a little opening, and you
little slot,
your little check, or put your
little glory hole.
Yeah, you would put your little glory hole. Put your
horizontal dick in there and not get sucked off until marriage.
Yes. That's exactly what you did. And
that's what I tried. I put a lot of money in there. I know my parents put a ton of money in there. That was what you were encouraged to do. You were basically encouraged to subside on as little as possible and donate as much as you possibly could to the organization. That was really being a devoted, upstanding member of the organization. I always thought that money was really just being funneled back into the production of publications and building kingdom halls and whatnot. Little did I know until I left that there is a governing body, which is basically like the Jehovah's Witness Supreme Court, I would say. It's basically 6 old white dudes. I think there's one black guy. I mean, with a religion like Jehovah's Witnesses,
33%.
Yeah, they got one Clarence Thomas. They got one token brother in the mix. And so, like, they have these 6 guys which make all the decisions. They're called the governing body. They decide how they kind of basically, I would say, manipulate Bible passages, which I also came to realize that their Bible, I always thought all Bibles are the same. This Bible is not the same as everybody else's Bible. You're aware of this too, right? I was not aware of this until fairly recent.
I haven't gone super deep on that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's
everything is kind of manipulated to serve the greater good of the organization in terms of their rules and regulations. So the governing body is kind of the deciding force. And I've come to realize, and I've come to find out that a lot of these governing body members, they are supported by these donations. And I know
they don't have any marketable skills.
Exactly. Yeah. One guy in particular, I can't remember his name. There was somebody took like a secret cell phone video of him at a liquor store. Apparently he's like a full-blown alcoholic, and he was like buying a case of scotch, of like really, really high-end top shelf scotch. And they were asking him like, hey, is this good stuff? And he's like, oh yeah, are you kidding me? I couldn't live without this shit. I think that he was caught on camera saying shit, which cursing is a no-no, and drinking to excess, which is also a no-no. And this guy, I think these guys are making money hand over fist. So all this money that these plebeian Jehovah's Witnesses are donating to the organization is all getting funneled up the ladder. As far as I know. I don't know if you've...
I have no idea.
I mean...
I remember...
Maybe I'm just starting conspiracy theories here, but I'm fucking leaning into it, baby.
I remember visiting the Brooklyn Bethel in probably like the 90s or early 2000s, and like being shown, I think their like boardroom or something like that.
Yeah.
I think someone who used to work there like took a group of like teenage boys up and showed us around. I don't know.
Showed us around.
The
Catholic Church isn't the only one that's up to no good.
And I think they were trying to make the case that they live like really, boring,
right?
Kingdom Hall aesthetic lives, but I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. To be continued. We'll have to get at the bottom of that one. Okay. This might be my favorite question. This is one that I've been asked quite a bit. This comes from George P. Can you name some famous Jehovah's Witnesses? Now, there's a lot. I would say, who would you say is the most famous of all the Jehovah's Witnesses? The one that everybody knows. Who's the go-to?
Michael Jackson.
Okay.
As a child,
yeah.
And then Prince.
Prince, yeah. So the funny thing about Prince is Prince was not born into it. Prince converted later. Did you know when Prince died, the Kingdom Hall that he was still going to in Minneapolis, like they put like purple lights like in memoriam to Prince? How fucking cool is that?
I think they're breaking some rules with that. Right? Purple lights. Gaudy. I mean, I respect it, but
yeah. I'm also like, and this is another thing that leads me to believe that this whole thing is a fucking money grab, because Prince, by definition, is the antithesis of everything they stand for. It is just blatant, explicit sexuality. Like, Prince is one of the filthiest, most obscene artists ever, certainly at the time, at the height of his popularity, wouldn't you say?
I mean, I think that's when he got...
I mean, the Dirty Mind album alone is like,
wonderful.
You can't play that at a Kingdom Hall.
You cannot. That's a great, Prince song, or Prince songs as Kingdom melodies. There's a future episode. Talking
about head, fucking your sister. I mean, like, Prince, everything Prince stands for, very big no-no.
Yeah, I wonder if like joining was he feeling guilty about all these?
Maybe that's a good
graphically sexual hit songs.
Could be.
He's like, I don't really know his '90s albums that well.
I don't either. I think
I hate to say,
maybe kind of took a dive, but yeah, I don't know what his impetus was for joining. I don't really know what he got out of it, but if he was making any sort of financial contribution to the organization, which I'm sure he was. I would imagine that's why they kept him close and took pride in that. There's no other celebrities that are endorsing the organization. Everybody else has come out as like, yeah, bad news. I was raised that way, but
right. Well, I think if you're a celebrity and you go into it, like then you're not like living that life anymore, right? You sort of
true.
Step away.
But I also heard that he was actually going out knocking on doors too. Which, can you imagine Prince showing up at your door? Like, yeah, all right, man, sure.
Instant conversion. I mean,
good enough for me.
He just brought a bathtub, dragged a bathtub with him. And he's just like, listen, we're going to get this done in like,
flunk. Yeah.
3.5 minutes.
Baptismal on the spot. All right. So Prince, I would say Prince is probably the most well known, probably because he was, considered a member up until his death. But yes, Michael Jackson, I guess all of the Jacksons were born into
at some point, yeah.
Right.
There's some good scenes in the that VH1 Jacksons movie. You've ever seen it? Where I don't think maybe there's some shots inside a Kingdom Hall, but there's definitely some like Kingdom Hall parking lot, hanging out with their books and
really.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Holy shit!
They
Wow.
Get a rewatch going.
Damn. Yeah, I was not aware of that. Okay, so the Jacksons. I'm sure you probably know this. The Williams sisters.
Of course.
You know that? Okay. Which I don't.
Venus and Serena.
Yep. I don't know if they are still practicing. That's another thing. Like a lot of these, the Jehovah's Witness lifestyle, the demand placed on you to go to 3 meetings a week.
It's 2 now, right?
Is it 2?
It's only 2.
No way. They cut back?
Diet, J.
Oh, anybody can do that.
It's been like that for like 5 or 6 years.
I think. Really?
Oh yeah. I think they mushed the 2 weekday meetings together
into one.
Damn. Because that was the killer. The Thursday night.
Oh yeah.
The one that went to like 9:15.
Dude, I know. Remember, like you trying to get your homework done before you go to the meeting, and then you couldn't, and then you get home at 10 o'clock and be like doing homework till midnight, and then showing up at school the next day, just like crapping on your desk. Be like, I'm fine. I'm not addicted to drugs. Wish I was. It's brutal. You can't.
No, yeah, that was the tough one.
Yeah. Wow. 2.
Yeah, it's 2. It's
So they've doubled down on their homophobia, but they've cut back their meeting intake. Okay, cool. Hey, baby steps. All right. So the Williams sisters. What I was going to say is a lot. The demand placed on you to go to meetings, daily Bible study, door-to-door ministry, the conventions. It's basically kind of a. I don't know if I'd say a full-time job, at least a part-time job, just in terms of the maintenance. Being the number 1 tennis player in the world doesn't really lend itself to a lot of free time for godly devotion. So I don't know.
You don't really, I don't think you know about the status of all these people, but just at one point, either they were born, or at some point, they dabbled as an adult.
Yes. Did you know Patti Smith was raised a Jehovah's Witness?
Yes.
You did.
That I did know.
So we got a white Jehovah's Witness. So far, look, Prince, black, Williams sisters, black, Michael Jackson, that kind of evens the playing field, I guess.
And then Patti Smith.
Right? Patti Smith. Here's one that was hiding in plain sight that I did not know. I don't know if you knew this. Hiding in plain sight. Ja Rule.
Child.
Did you know that though?
I did not. I don't know. I might have heard that at one point.
What a genius move. So he left, but he took the name Ja Rules. That's crazy, isn't it?
Maybe he was, Ja Rule.
Ja Rule. Jehovah's Rule. Jehovah's
Rule.
Kingdom.
No H.
He
just
probably,
the A, right?
J-A Rule. That nuts? So apparently I did a little research. He was raised in it. Then his mother was disfellowshipped, I think when he was in his early teens.
Okay.
Totally ostracized from the rest of the family. I think he went to live with his grandparents, was only allowed to see his mom on the weekends. And that kind of soured him on it. Be like, I can't see my own mother. Like, what the fuck is this? He left, and then his rap career took off. And then, even though he left and defected, he became a superstar. And then all this family that wasn't allowed to talk to him, all wants a piece of him, and now suddenly they're back in his life, and we'll turn a blind eye to the former defection from the religion. Now it's a big happy family again because you're a fucking multimillionaire. We want a piece of it.
Okay.
So definitely
that sounds
money
like
motivated organization.
Cat Williams as well.
Yes.
On your list. Yeah.
So Cat Williams not on my list, but yes, Cat Williams was on the WTF podcast a couple months ago talking about it, which, like you were saying, I don't know if you can believe everything Cat Williams says because he's lived quite an insane life.
I don't know why you claim that as an origin story if you don't have to. Though.
Yeah. That's a good point.
But he was, that was it's quite a tale. It's like a Huckleberry Finn of wild story. But yeah, he claimed that.
He was born into it too, right?
Born into it.
Yeah.
And then he left. I think we were joking over text a couple months ago. He left, I think he claimed, at like 13 because he knew how sexually promiscuous he had to be, which is just, I mean, talk about, know thyself. He knew at 13. Like,
he wasn't even acting on it yet. He just knew
this is going to be a problem.
That the future held great promise for him in terms of his sexual proclivities. Yeah. Good for him. Here's one I had forgotten about. Dave Mustaine from Megadeth.
Did not know that.
I know that.
Great. That's a great poll.
Yeah. So he went, opposite direction. The name Megadeth, metal music, references to, I don't know if they necessarily have references to the occult, but definitely, the imagery used within the Megadeth world, definitely a bit of rebellion there, I would say. Definitely not music that is embraced by the organization.
Did not know that one.
Terrence Howard, you know about him?
Did not know that.
No? Yeah.
That's a good one.
I don't have much backstory on him. Jerry Halliwell, you know who that is?
I know, yes.
Ginger Spice.
Oh, okay.
Yep. All right, so we got a couple more whites in the mix. Patti Smith, Dave Mustaine, Jerry Halliwell. Yeah, I didn't know Jerry Halliwell. If you want to be my lover, we got to get married first. And here's one that I didn't know. Dwight Eisenhower.
Wow, that's great.
Isn't that nuts? So listen to this. Dwight Eisenhower's mother became involved with the Watchtower in 1895 at age 34 when Dwight was only 5 years old. She was baptized in 1898, meaning she was now what is called a Jehovah's Witness minister. So for those who don't know, when you're a Catholic, you get baptized as a baby. You're kind of, or
that means if you die, you're not going to hell, I think, right?
I think so, yeah. You're officially a member of the organization. Whereas Jehovah's Witnesses, you make that choice. You're certainly pressured into it. You're kind of
choice is a strong word.
Yes.
But yes, you're pressured into doing that when you most don't want to, between the ages of 12 and 18.
Right. Where you hop in the dunk tank. So she was baptized in 1898, making her a Jehovah's Witness minister. Further, she did not flirt with the witness beliefs as claimed by some authors, but was a faithful member of Jehovah's Witnesses for 50 years. Dwight Eisenhower said his mother had an inflexible loyalty to her religious convictions, and in 1955, Watchtower President Milton G. Henschel claimed Ida Eisenhower was one of the most energetic Watchtower preachers in Abilene, Kansas. The Watchtower Society had a major influence on the future president until 1914 when he left for West Point. So, again, that's a pretty big defection from Jehovah's Witnesses to go to West Point. Military service is certainly frowned upon. And then becoming president, leader of the free world.
Also.
Having your finger over the nuke button at any given time. I mean, he really took a hard left turn there. Pretty impressive, though. That's another thing.
It's that public speaking ability.
That's true. It seems like Jehovah's Witnesses can really breed greatness. I mean, a lot of these people are fucking legends in their field, right? I mean, what the fuck is
president?
Our excuse.
So was he in it? Does it say? Or was he?
I think he would. I mean, when you're a kid, you don't have much choice.
True.
I think apparently both his parents were in it. So I imagine he was going to, meetings. This is also very early on, 1898, and this was the very, very beginnings of the religion. I think that this may have even been before they were called Jehovah's Witnesses. They were formerly called Bible
students.
Right?
Yeah, we'd have to fact check that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
but yeah, that means
the OGs,
because they said, I mean, the end of the world was 1914,
right?
And so she lived through that. So she lived through the first big oops. Maybe we shouldn't. Whoops. And then she stuck with it. So indeed, she did not flirt with other religions.
She did not flirt.
She probably did not flirt much at all.
Yeah, this is another thing that I was not aware of until I left, that Armageddon was falsely predicted
many times.
Four times? 1914, 1975, 2000 apparently, which I was in it in 2000.
I don't remember that. Just a general Y2K.
I think they might have
anxiety,
the Y2K thing a little bit. Yeah. And then, is that it?
I think there was some, I think there were a couple earlier ones. Like, I think right after 1914, they were like
another one,
1916 or something. I'd have to check on that, but.
And now they've learned their lesson. Now they just said it's close. We're not gonna stamp a year on there, but it's close. So just hang tight.
Who else we got?
That's it. As far as most famous, those are. Oh wait, one more. Naomi Campbell, supermodel Naomi Campbell, who apparently is a raging bitch. Has some serious anger problems. You've heard stories about her, right?
I had
throwing telephones at like interns at various fashion houses and shit. She seems like a real live wire, which, it can do a number on you. It can leave you with some PTSD.
Okay.
Makes sense. Okay, we got time for one more question. This is a good one. This is, I don't know the answer to this one, but I'm curious if you do. We might have to do some brainstorming. This comes from an Instagram account called First Period Stories. And it's exactly what it sounds like. The description in their bio is a place to share our unique first period stories to help start the conversation and end the stigma, with a blood drop emoji. So, hey, I never knew what kind of reach this podcast had, but apparently I'm really resonating with menstruating women. So that's good to know. So First Period Stories asks, can you please explain the 144,000? What do they do exactly? Do they all huddle and vote on what's best for paradise? So, for those who don't know, I've explained this in the past, but there's basically, at post-Armageddon, there's two groups, right? If you survive Armageddon, you either become a member of the Great Crowd and you live on a paradise Earth, right? Which is another thing I'm curious to get your take on, because somebody asked me, I didn't know. In terms of the timeline, say Armageddon was to strike right now, right? Fire and brimstone, we're obliterated as we already established. Say there was like a couple of Jehovah's Witnesses on my block right here going door to door. They would supposedly be left standing in a post-apocalyptic hellscape with just a bunch of dead bodies and rubble. And then would it be like a snap of the fingers where the earth is immediately transformed into a paradise? Do they have to do cleanup?
I think there's got to be some kind of miraculous cleanup that's happening, because then there's 1,000 years.
I mean, how many people are left on the planet? 8 million people are left on the planet, right?
Right.
So that's to transform.
And not a lot of them went to college, so we're hoping.
I don't even know how to use a shovel.
We're hoping for some engineers in the leftovers, but yeah. Well, so then they have 1,000 years to get things to paradise.
Oh, is that true? I forgot.
Which is not an uncommon.
They have 1,000 years.
1,000 years.
So they are responsible for getting the Earth back in shape, cleaning up all the mess, burning what does that mean? What are they doing in that 1,000 years?
I think they're growing to perfection, right? Or has that not happened yet? I think they're getting the earth ready. It's a paradise. And I don't think this is that uncommon in other Protestant religions, that I think they call it millennialist, that there's a period of time and then Satan comes back again after the
Jesus.
1,000 years. After the
Jesus.
1,000 years, the
I
resurrection.
must have been too busy swallowing
People are
my
resurrection.
Bible strip.
Probably. I mean, I feel like I'm being tested on something I studied for 20 years ago.
Damn, that really went in one ear and out the other. I think maybe my parents kind of left that part out.
I think it's a little,
because that would have really made me question things from day one. Like,
I think the
1,000
logic
years.
is maybe 1,000 years. It might be a little fuzzy. Who gets to come back? Who's killed
Right.
during Armageddon?
Yeah.
Who gets resurrected?
So we can establish, though, that the 144,000 is an elite group of witnesses who have received a divine calling.
Yes.
They are not meant to be of this great crowd that live in these human bodies on paradise earth, but they are to ascend to heaven to rule with Jesus
As kings and priests.
Kings and priests, yes, over the paradise earth.
Over the earth.
Which is another good question, because if everybody's perfect, what ruling needs to be done? You know what I mean?
Great question.
Everybody's perfect. What do you got to do?
These elites.
There's no. There's these fucking
Can't
one
escape them.
percenters.
My thinking would be that, because the numbers like in the Bible. So I think early on, when they were just the Bible students in the 19th century, when, before they got really big, I think they thought everybody was in the 144,000.
Yeah.
And then they, the numbers grew, and they're like, we might need to revise things.
Right.
And only this elect group.
Somebody else asked me recently, a couple episodes ago, the first ex-Jehovah's Witness guest I had on, he's like, Jehovah's Witnesses have existed for over 100 years now. This 144,000 number has not been adjusted at all. Have they not filled their quota yet? That's not that many people. 144,000. I mean, it's a good chunk, but out of 8 million.
And then total, 8 million now, and however many million. It's not a lot.
Before, yeah.
They don't have it. I mean, that's a great question, because it's getting harder and harder to become one, right? Like, all right, we only have like 14 spots left. So,
yeah, right. Yeah, what hoops you got to jump through? Do you ever remember seeing? I remember seeing maybe a handful of people partake. Did you? You remember?
Oh yeah, one.
Yeah, one.
I think I was sitting next to her too.
Yeah,
it was awesome. It's such a thrill. So I think what you're referring to is during our one celebration a year, the memorial, which is like our only official holiday.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar to like a Passover or something at a Catholic church. You pass around the bread and the wine, but unlike communion, you don't take it unless you think you're one of the 144,000.
Yeah. So it's a big deal when you see
it's a big deal. Yeah. So most years,
99.9% of the time, it gets passed around with nobody taking a sip, nobody taking a bite of cracker. It just gets passed around untouched.
And talking about like, what do you do to pass the time? Like during a memorial, which is also, sort of dry.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, well, maybe, I'm going to crane my neck around, see if anybody eating.
Yeah.
So yeah, once.
Yeah.
It was thrilling.
Was it at Lewisboro or was it?
No, it was it was in North Carolina.
Was it some super old dude?
No, it was a woman, actually.
It was a woman?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Hardcore pioneer.
Just some drunk who stumbled in off the street. They got free wine over at the Huntersville congregation.
No, she was like she was a card-carrying member.
Yeah?
She was serious business. Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. Yeah. It is thrilling. I saw maybe two people, all both very old. And it was thrilling. But anyway, so 144,000. Do they all huddle and vote on what's best for paradise? Yeah, I don't know, because if paradise is perfection, everybody's living in a state of perfection forever. Man and beast living as one. I also always wondered. I always thought, like, if given the choice between being of the great crowd and living on a beautiful paradise where everything is just perfection. I mean, if you haven't seen a Jehovah's Witness publication, I don't know if any of these really illustrate it, but this is what they used to rope us in as kids, is this depiction of a paradise earth where it's just, none of these. Oh, here we go. On the back here. So I don't know if you can see this, but it's, everybody living in racial harmony, This lady's doling out carrots to some kid, which, you know, I could do without carrots personally. But they usually depict, you know, kids frolicking around in a field with a lion who's not trying to eat you because for some reason the lions are no longer carnivorous. Yeah. And that's what they used to rope you in as a kid. That you just think it's like, oh my God, I get to live in a petting zoo with exotic animals. This is awesome. And then you reach your teen years and like Cat Williams, you know, you got one thing on your mind. You're like, well, unless that panda bear puts out, I want no part of this. Yeah. But I always thought, like, if given the choice between being among the great crowd and being stuck up in heaven twiddling my thumbs, I think the great crowd sounds way better.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you doing up there? That sounds like a pretty. You're just
are you in
stuck there?
space?
Yeah. It's like the end of that movie Gravity. You're just floating forever for eternity. Yeah, it sounds terrible. So if you get the divine calling to be of the 144,000, just don't partake. What would happen then if you just didn't partake? If you're like, nah, I'm good.
What
if you decline the offer?
I think Jehoavah knows.
You're like, I appreciate the offer for the vice president status, but I want to.
I'm just gonna. I like this wine and bread. I'm just gonna chill and eat that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, hey. So bottom line, we didn't know the answers to some of these questions, and that is why we are no longer affiliated with this organization. A lot of shit went in one ear and out the other, and I didn't even know about this 1,000-year thing.
Yeah,
That makes me even more grateful that I fled when I did. That's a long fucking chunk of time to be waiting around.
Clean up. It's like after the convention, you're just all right.
Yeah,
Time to sweep this earth.
Yeah, fuck that. I served my time. All right. Well, hey, that's all we have time for this episode. But thank you, man. This was a blast. It's
been great.
Thank you for shedding some light on some of these things that I have not thought about in fucking 20 years. Anyway, we hope to do more of these AMA episodes and possibly an MMA episode. I think we should have some Jehovah's Witness bare knuckle boxing matches, and whoever loses, I don't know,
misses out on Armageddon, or misses out on the paradise.
Maybe that's what they're doing in heaven. Maybe wouldn't that be fun if it was like a secret fight club in heaven?
That's what the 144,000.
That's what the divine calling is.
It's just a big bracket.
Yeah.
And then you just get to be God if you win or something.
Yeah. There must be something more to it that we don't know about. Anyway, we're going to do some more of these AMA episodes. So please keep your questions coming in. JehovahBoyPodcast@gmail.com. Email me all your questions, anything you got. There's no stupid, what's the expression? No stupid questions, only stupid people? Stupid answers?
That's not very encouraging.
Hey, you fucking idiots. Email the podcast. No, there are no stupid questions. I was raised in this shit, and I didn't know the answers to half of these. So there are no stupid questions. Ask away. I know it's a real mind fuck of an organization. A lot of things that they do make no sense. So send in all your queries, and we will answer them on the podcast. And if you were among these 5 people whose question we answered or tried to, I hope you're satisfied with the job we did. But yes, email the podcast, and please subscribe to my YouTube, youtube.com/@WhoDougSmith. Join the Patreon, patreon.com/JehovahBoy for early access to full ad-free video of every episode. And thanks so much for tuning in. Rate, review, subscribe, and stay tuned for an upcoming episode with the one and only Mark Buzzee. A full interview, the inside scoop, the behind the music of Mark Buzzee's life.
I like those
as
terms.
J-Dub. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Goodbye.